As you all know, our province is facing one of the most significant challenges in its history. Every available resource in Alberta has been deployed to combat the wildfire and effect a safe and orderly evacuation. A Herculean effort by Alberta's firefighters, police, sheriffs, emergency service responders, and volunteers has allowed us to effect the safest possible evacuation of more than 80,000 citizens from danger, and additional resources continue to pour in from across Canada. As you know, we've signed a memorandum of understanding with the Canadian Forces for air support to assist with transportation and air support. As well, we've been working very closely with industry partners who have contributed significantly to our efforts. And yesterday we announced that in addition to providing $2 million in seed funding, the Government of Alberta will match donations to the Red Cross Alberta Fires Emergency Appeal. Shortly after, the Government of Canada followed suit and also committed to match donations from the Red Cross. Communities, individual Albertans and businesses from across the province and across the country have opened their homes, their facilities, and their hearts to those whose lives have been devastated by this fire. I am immensely proud of ordinary people's extraordinary response to this crisis, but I must stress that they are very early days and there is much more to do and more help will be needed. So we know we need to support all those Albertans who have had to evacuate their homes in response to this emergency. We recognize that the people of Fort McMurray and the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo who have been evacuated from their homes are eager to return home. But I must be very, very direct about this. It is apparent that the damage to the community of Fort McMurray is extensive, and the city is not safe for residents at this time. Firefighters continue to battle a very dangerous wildfire. Once that immediate threat is past, we will still need to spend as much time as it takes to assess the infrastructure that is vital to support a community safely. As we are still in the response phase of this emergency, it is simply not possible, nor is it responsible, to speculate on a time that citizens will be able to return. Unfortunately, we do know that it will not be a matter of days. Now, I know that this experience is heartbreaking. That it's heartbreaking, and it's a devastating experience for individuals and for the families that are affected. And I understand that the Albertans who are affected by this tragedy are scared and very tired and very worried about their homes and what the future holds for themselves and their families. Trust us that we have your back, that we will be there for you, and that we will support you along the way. We will identify opportunities for evacuated residents of Fort McMurray and the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo to visit their homes and retrieve valuables and assess damage when it is safe to do so, but only, and I must stress this, only when it is safe to do so. The critical component is to deal with the fire and the evacuation first, and once the fires are under control, this important work can begin. The province will work with the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo and other stakeholders like utility operators to complete a thorough damage assessment with a view to restore essential services, utilities, and services to ensure that residents have a safe, functioning neighborhood and home to move back into. In the meantime, we are working to help all of you who have been directly affected by this crisis. The evacuation reception centres are well equipped and have resources on hand to assist with all aspects of their health and well-being. Evacuation centres that have been established across the province have very deep resources available at them. Caseworkers from the Alberta government are on hand at these evacuation centres to assist with a full range of support services, including income supports and programs like AISH. In the coming days, additional financial supports will be made available to ensure that affected Albertans have the resources and income supports that they need. Included in our considerations are the notion of the cash card option, which we hope to be able to give you more information on in coming days. Community partners are also helping with this transition and the work towards providing a more secure setting. Edmonton Public and Catholic schools have indicated to us that they are opening school spaces in Edmonton for displaced students. Parents or guardians are encouraged to contact the school that they want to send their child to for more information, and we are told that they will be welcomed. That they will be welcomed with open arms. Insurance company representatives are also on hand at reception centres to help assist with immediate displacement costs and commence discussions about replacement and reconstruction. Now, we also recognize that the reception centres are not a permanent solution. Our officials are currently assessing housing inventory and the demand for housing in order to provide more adequate transition housing. We hope to be able to provide you with the initial plan elements for that transition housing early next week. However, to effectively get these resources to those affected and at the appropriate levels, we need more information about who has been evacuated, where they are, and what supports you require. Please, if you have been evacuated due to the wildfire, please visit emergency.alberta.ca and follow the instructions at that page, or call the Red Cross at 1-888-350-6070 to register for services. Please be patient, as this number is extremely busy. Details about an online registration resource will be available as soon as possible. We understand that many evacuees are not going to the reception centres. We understand that most of you are with friends and with relatives, but we still need you to contact us and to register so that we can assess the extent of the support that everybody requires. It is so essential that all evacuees register so we can get you the service and the support that you need and that you are eligible for, whether you are in a reception centre or you found your own accommodation. For all other updates, please continue to monitor emergency.alberta.ca or call our toll-free line at 310-4455. To our federal partners, I would just like to start by saying thank you so much for all of your contributions to date. It has been extremely comforting to get the level of support and cooperation that we have received thus far. I also have to stress that the scale and the complexity of this emergency will require more going forward. Most of all, as we do go forward, we are likely going to be needing greater flexibility on disaster relief criteria for funding supports for the many Albertans affected by this disaster, particularly as it relates to income and transitional housing supports. The steps the federal government has taken to speed up access to employment insurance benefits for those affected are an important first step, and we look forward to more work in this direction. Let me just go on to provide some additional sort of status updates in terms of how things have changed since this morning. I'm pleased to say, primarily with the tremendous assistance of our industry partners, that since this morning we've been able to have roughly 4,000 people evacuated from north of the city down to either Edmonton and Calgary. This has been done primarily through the work of industry, bringing in WestJet flights and airlifting people out. At this point, we're hoping for that work to be able to continue and to finish the day with a total number evacuated at around 8,000. In addition, the plan is to get fuel up north of the city tonight so that tomorrow convoys can begin south through the city led by the RCMP with people in their vehicles. So the evacuation continues and is going well. And those folks are being brought to either Edmonton or Calgary, to the reception centre at Northlands, or the reception centre at SAIT, or a potential new reception centre at U of C. Discussions are underway there. I would also like to confirm what's probably somewhat out there, that an air tanker slid off the runway in Manning. We're pleased to report that there were no fatalities. Both pilots are currently being evaluated for their medical status and treatment needs. The airport at Fort McMurray remains open and in use. The fire did grow today, but the rate of growth is not like it was yesterday. The rate of growth has slowed. The additional efforts of municipal firefighters in the town of Fort McMurray showed progress today. There was progress in terms of protecting the efforts with, again, the Thickwood and Timberley areas remained successful, as have the efforts for the downtown section, and as I've noted already, for the airport. The water plant, you may have heard, did go offline for a period of time today, but officials were able to repair it, and so it's back in operation. So that is good news. So that's the state of things as they stand right now in Fort McMurray, and that is the most recent information that we have for evacuees, and we expect to be able to give additional information about supports moving forward in the days to come. And so I will pass the mic over to to Chad for more specific information, and we'll be happy to take your questions after they've had a chance to speak.
Good evening. I'm Chad Morrison with Alberta Wildfire. As the Premier noted, the fire size still at this point is still officially at 85,000 hectares. The fire continues to grow to the southeast, away from the community, and that's due to the strong northwest winds of 40 kilometers an hour. We had lower humidities and dry conditions today, and temperatures are lower, so the fire has not moved as far as it did yesterday. Crews, firefighters, air tankers, helicopters, and dozers continue working with the municipality and the fire department there to secure the northwest portion of the fire in the Timberley and Thickwood areas. We've made good progress here with all the firefighters. We've put in dozer guard in the north end as well with air support and tankers. We've been able to hold much of the line here today and protect much of this critical infrastructure and protect, first and foremost of all, some of the homes. At this point, the wildfire on the far southeast section has moved. Today I can pass on that has moved 3 kilometers towards Anzac. It's right on its doorstep at this time, but we continue to work to fight the fire in that area to try and protect that community. Our incident command post has been reestablished at the airport location. In total, there's over 350 structural and wildland firefighters on scene, and we continue to supplement that with 10 helicopters, air tankers, and as well as numerous heavy equipment and dozers. We have firefighters continuing to arrive from other provinces like Ontario, Quebec, and others, and we continue to focus on our resources on protecting those homes. At this time, there still is extreme fire behavior occurring at this time of night, moving the fire to the southeast, still with crown fires, but it's mostly in the treed and forested areas. Overall in the province, we had 12 new starts today, and we still have 41 ongoing wildfires, with 10 out of control, 10 being held, 16 under control, and 15 turned over. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Scott to kind of provide more up to date on what's going on in the community.
Thank you. Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Scott Long, Executive Director, Operations, AEMA. The Provincial Operations Centers are running 24/7 and will continue to run 24/7 for as long as it takes. Thankfully, we got a lot of good partners out there. The Manitoba and Saskatchewan have reached out. Right now, we have reinforcements coming in terms of planning and operations expertise to help us out in the Provincial Operations Center. Manitoba, we'll be reaching out to them in due course. We also have additional planning expertise that DND has provided. Right now, in terms of the Regional Emergency Operations Center in Fort McMurray, CAN Task Force 2, local authorities, Provincial representatives, wildfire representatives are all working in a unified command structure exceptionally well and dealing with all of the problems and the challenges, as you can well imagine. The water treatment plant, as the Premier mentioned, did go down for a short period of time. It is back up and running. We are in the process of bringing in some experts from the Red Deer area to have a look at it to make sure that it maintains its functionality as well. With regards to evacuations, the airhead is running very well. And again, thanks to our industry partners, D&D is also a part of that with their CJ-130. Tomorrow, we expect that airhead to continue to run, and the D&D assets will be fully engaged in that effort as well. Ground transport plan was ready to go today, but as the Premier mentioned, it simply was not safe to do so. So safety of Albertans is our priority, and it was not safe. Local authorities, the Regional Emergency Operations Center made that call. So tomorrow morning at first light, we are going to start using, based on the conditions, we will start implementing the ground evacuation plan south as well. And that's it. Oh, sorry. With regards to the reception centers, we had a very fruitful conversation and discussions with Red Cross today, with our Human Services, Emergency Social Services, to reinforce and make sure that Albertans arriving in those reception centers have all of the support requirements met. Thank you.
Take questions from the floor, and then we'll take questions from the phone.
You said that today you were going to do a flyover on 63 and see how safe it is. I mean, exactly what are people going to be driving through here? Is there still active fire going along there like they were driving?
The issue today, thank you. The issue today, we did use D&D assets to do continuous overflights and actually reconnaissance with the Regional Emergency Operations Center to have a look at the critical infrastructure, do assessments. The issue today was wildfire was jumping in some areas, but it was primarily smoke, heavy smoke, and we did not want people being overcome as they were going through. So again, safety paramount. We decided to hold it off until tomorrow. And another part of the plan for that is that we will still have an overflight. So out in front of ground convoys when they start, there will be a D&D helicopter that will be out in front to spot to make sure that there is no issues. RCMP escort in front and back, and they will be done in a packet-controlled manner. So groups of vehicles being escorted through, if you will.
I'm wondering if you could actually expand some more on the supports that might be available to evacuees. We're getting a lot of questions about what they might see in the coming days.
Well, as thus far, what we are looking at, of course, is just ensuring that folks right now who are currently would be in receipt of AISH or income support benefits can ensure that they continue to receive those benefits. People who believe that they may need to be in receipt of those benefits can also access the opportunity to apply for them at the reception centres. Meanwhile, as well, in the reception centres, as you know, there's food, there's water, there's the basic necessities along with a place to stay. We will, as a cabinet, be looking at an overarching financial commitment that we will be advancing. And we'll be deliberating on that tomorrow. And generally speaking, in terms of additional financial support for with respect to initial support or income support for all evacuees, we'll be deliberating and getting advice from officials on the mechanics of moving forward on other types of income support. And then, as you know, of course, the federal government is also streamlining EI applications for those people who have lost their jobs. We're in the process right now of doing an inventory of I mean, it's a rough one, but in terms of, some people are employed in such a fashion that they continue to receive income, depending on the relationship they have with their employer. Some do not, and thus the income needs become very immediate very soon. So we're doing an inventory of that, and then we'll be constructing our income support response on that, based on that information.
When are you talking to Cabinet?
Tomorrow, well, our cabinet meets every day on this, and we make a number of decisions. So the overarching conversation around preliminary financial outlay, just globally, will be tomorrow. And then I suspect that over the course of the next 2 or 3 days, we'll receive advice from officials on the best way to structure additional income support. Understanding that we need to be able to provide people with information on that in a very, very, very short period of time.
Housing stock, are you looking at, is there provincial affordable housing stock you're looking at, or is it private? Is anything available? And are you looking specifically just Edmonton, Calgary?
It's a broad thing. I haven't been. We're looking at a number of things. For instance, we're looking at our partners in the university sector. The timing of this is such that, obviously residences, many of them are freed up for the next few months. So that's one thing, but that's not the only thing. We're working with Capital Housing to get advice from them on vacancy rates. We're also going to be looking at, once things settle down in terms of what kind of housing stock is available in Fort McMurray as well. We're doing an overall inventory, so housing officials are doing that, and that will inform our transitional housing plan over the course that we hope to be able to talk to people about in more detail early next week. Understanding that those folks who are staying in the reception centres, that those are not a long-term solution, and we need to find people more habitable arrangements pretty quickly.
In regards to the people north of town, we heard from a number of them today, including some workers in the work camps. They're having trouble getting good information, so they don't know, is the fire coming to them? Should they evacuate? Where should they go? How can you get sort of better information to them so that they do know the plan and what they should do?
Well, I think I'll certainly let Scott speak to that. But certainly one of the conversations that we had after our visit to the community yesterday was the need to perhaps strengthen our communications with the camps and the coordination with the camps. Previously, it was the municipal folks who were the first line with respect to that communication, and they were in the midst of moving their emergency operations not once but twice yesterday. So some of the provincial folks have now stepped in as well to engage in that coordination. I spoke with Mayor Blake earlier today, and she's at Firebag still with her family, and she certainly indicated to me that her impression is that the level of communication has improved significantly today, and that people are feeling a greater level of confidence. But certainly, Scott, if you'd like to offer anything in addition to that.
Just a follow-up. Is the Red Cross over there up north? Is there some volunteer from the Red Cross?
Not at this time. There are some Alberta Health Services folks that are there, and there are also some camp employees for medical staff. Just to expand on one point with regards to the communications piece, the Regional Emergency Operations Centre plans to send up teams tomorrow to the camps, facilitate the information passage, and do a further assessment on requirements for food, water, etc. Concurrent to that, of course, is the air bridge will continue tomorrow, and the air evacuations will happen.
There's a lot of encroachment to the south and east. Was there any more encroachment in the community today by the fire? Do we know?
Not that I'm aware of.
Where are your team focusing on right now? Sorry.
Yeah, the teams continue to focus on the community, on the homes and the critical infrastructure in the northwest. With the winds blowing the fire to the south, it's not safe to put crews directly in front, but we can still use our air resources in the south to fight the fire near those communities there. But again, the focus is going to be we're securing the northwest perimeter here, and then throughout the community, working with the municipal fire services and wildfire services together, all trying to secure that community and make sure that everything's good there. As well, some of the critical infrastructure pieces downtown. And then as the incident command post continues to be reestablished here, and that they're continuing to clean up anything that's there so that those areas are secure and safe as well.
Yesterday you were able to tell us that the wind was going to shift and move this way. What does the forecast look like now? Is it going to continue that way? Are we expecting another shift?
At this point, we're expecting likely west winds tomorrow, but not nearly the speed that we've had. Again, it's still early to tell on how the fire will behave, and we'll kind of have a better assessment and clue to that in the morning. So we'll get back to you on that. But we still have a few warm, hot burning, dry days in front of us for sure. Firefighters will continue to be challenged based on the fire behavior that we're seeing today, even with the cooler temperatures. So we're not out of the woods yet, and we still have a long ways to go.
We're going to go to the phone lines now. Operator, can you put through the first caller, please?
Your first question comes from Ryan Tumulty with Metro Edmonton. Your line is open.
This is for Premier or maybe for Mr. Long. I'm just wondering sort of what efforts you're making to sort of ensure that not all the evacuees come to Edmonton. I know the Northlands Center is already very busy, and with the number that are coming would be full very quickly. How are you making sure that, I guess, the evacuees get spread out throughout the province?
Well, to be clear, first of all, with respect to the airlift, they are sort of being distributed between Edmonton and Calgary. But to be honest, what we are trying to do is encourage them to the two major centres, because that's where we have the greatest number of services, both in terms of health, income support, mental health support, as well as the capacity to absorb the students into the school system. So at this point, there are other spots. There's St. Paul, there's Lac La Biche. There are definitely other centres, but where we think ultimately the cities and the two urban centres have the greatest capacity to support most of the evacuees. The key thing to remember is that the vast majority of evacuees don't typically ever end up in the reception centres. So when we talk about evacuating, 50,000 people, that you might find 10 or less that would end up going through the reception centres. Others will end up finding their own accommodation or staying with friends or staying with relatives. But that all of it, whether you're in the reception centre or whether you're staying in your friend's rec room right now, or your sister-in-law or your mother-in-law's guest room, the fact of the matter is none of this is a long-term arrangement, and so we have to work quickly to provide effective transitional support for folks.
Operator, please put through the next caller.
Your next question comes from Ewan Trosha with Reuters.
Hi there. Just want to know if there is any update at all on the number of structures that may have been damaged or destroyed in the town itself, and also if there's any update on some of the industrial facilities around, with the fire heading towards the southeast and towards the Long Lake facilities.
At this point, there's no update with respect to the structural damage within the community. Again, for the same reasons, firefighters are focusing on doing the work that Chad just described in terms of protecting the communities and the infrastructure, and so additional evaluations of structural damage haven't been completed at this time. With respect to the industrial sites around the community, at this point, they all remain intact. The fire is getting somewhat closer to one particular facility, but at this time, the firefighters were actually, it's a separate fire, if I recall correctly. But firefighters are on that particular wildfire with all the resources necessary, and the facility itself has enacted their own emergency preparation procedures. So it's being looked after.
And just to be clear, is that the Long Lake facility?
It's Hanging Rock, is it? Or
We don't have the details at this point, but it's Hanging Rock. I believe it's a SAG-D facility in the southeast.
Yeah.
More information shortly.
Yeah. It's a SAG-D facility in the southeast. I think it's Hanging Stone. That's it. But it's not confirmed yet.
Operator, please put through the next caller.
Your next question comes from Chester Dawson with Wall Street Journal.
Yes, hi. I have two questions. First of all, can we get any update on how many evacuees there are total? We've been told it's in the vicinity of 80,000, but that seems to be just Fort McMurray. Are there, including Anzac and these other areas, do you have a more updated estimate on the number of folks who have been forced to flee? And Secondly, can we get a little more detail on the ground evacuation plan details? Is the convoy going to come right through Fort McMurray from points north to Edmonton?
At this point, I'm advised by Scott we don't have more specific updates beyond the roughly 80,000 number in terms of evacuees. Anzac, we know, had about 700 people in it, but some of those were already evacuees, for example. In terms of the ground evacuation tomorrow, yes, at this point, the intention is that the convoy with air support would make its way down Highway 63 through the city of Fort McMurray and then straight south towards Edmonton and points beyond.
Thank you.
I have a couple more questions from the phone, and then I'll come back to the floor for any outstanding questions. Operator, please put through the next caller.
Your next question comes from Gwen Dombrowski with Canadian Press.
Hi. Have there been incidents of people trying to get back into their homes?
Nothing of any significance at this point, no. I think people have been remarkably patient. They've followed the requests and the instructions of the first responders, and it's really been a testament to all that is good about the people of Fort McMurray and the people of Alberta. But we also know and we understand if anyone put themselves into the shoes of the folks from Fort McMurray, of course, you want to know what's happening in your community. You want to know how quickly you can get back. You want to know what's happened to what you've left behind you. And so there is that tendency to want to go back as soon as possible. But it's really very, very important that we remember that it's important that when people go back, they go back safely. And when people move back, they move back to a community that has the capacity to support them with the infrastructure in place. And so that's what we're going to work very hard to make sure happens as soon as possible.
Are you saying then that there have been no incidents of people trying to get back?
None of note. Yeah, none that we're aware of.
Operator, please put through the next caller.
Your next question comes from Mary Jo LaForest with Canadian Press.
Hi, I just had a follow-up to the ground transportation plan for tomorrow. How many people do you expect to move in this convoy tomorrow? When will it start approximately? And then I had another question about the 4,000 to 8,000 people that you're moving today, have moved and plan to move today by air. Who those people are and where they come from.
I'm sorry. I was getting the answer. So with respect to the convoy tomorrow, the first convoy will be roughly 400 vehicles. Obviously, there'll be more than one person per vehicle in each vehicle. So that's the first one, and I think we'll see how well it goes, and then they'll orchestrate additional ones afterwards. I'm sorry, I missed your second question. Did anyone here catch it?
The 4,000 people that have moved, that you've moved already by air, where did they come from?
Oh, they came from the Shell camp, Firebag, and from the Suncor camp. And so those were the two major ones. And I believe that's still where they're coming from. If I'm not incorrect, those are the ones that have the landing strips.
Transportation again tomorrow, approximately how many people are you expecting to move that way?
Our goal, Albion Sands is the aerodrome that we're using as the staging area. I won't put a number on it, but we're hoping to at least do what we did today, which is hopefully close to 7,000 by air. And in conjunction with the ground move plan, we're hoping to have some great success tomorrow.
What time are you starting that, the convoy?
We want to do that as early as possible, which is why we are moving up fueling assets when it's safe to do so tonight. The call will be made by the Regional Emergency Operations Center first thing in the morning, based on the conditions at the time, and then we will start the movement. Or we will delay it if it is unsafe to do so.
Any other questions from the floor?
How are you going to prioritize who's in that first 400 convoy, 400 vehicle convoy? Who gets to go?
Right now, there are a number of vehicles that were on the Highway 63 north of Fort McMurray. So I will leave that to the RCMP and the team on the ground, how they're going to do that, but it'll be done orderly, controlled, and safely.
Thanks, guys.